Hey everybody, I'm Anthony. This is Matt. We are the Amoonguss Burnouts. We're here to give you the Week 1 Power Rankings and analysis for the Multi-Battle Conference. So we'll get right into it right now. We're going to go with the Week 1 results. The first game we're going to go over is Team Pussy and the Matt Alcinas.
This one was an interesting game. It was a bit of an upset. The league, most of the league voted for Team Pussy to win. It's easy to see why. This is interestingly enough. This week 1 match is a mirrors the finals of season 3. Both Team Pussy and Matt Alcinas got to finals. Team Pussy won pretty decisively. So it makes sense that a lot of us thought this game was going to go to Team Pussy, but Ben and Vichy ended up controlling the game pretty well. In the beginning, they turn 1, they determined that the best thing they could do for their Polytoad was to go for a Scald on the opposing Gyarados, which really neutered Team Pussy's Dynamax and stopped them from gaining a lot of momentum. They were able to sort of maintain through that Dynamax Gyarados. Wasn't able to put as big of a dent in their team as Team Pussy would have liked, and then as Inteleon was brought out and the rain from the Damp Rock Polytoad stayed up, the turn where they went for a Helping Hand Surf,
Yeah.
into I believe it was
Gengar Gyarados.
Yeah, Gengar Gyarados almost took out the Gyarados even.
Yeah.
That really turned the tide of the game, and that was when Ben and Vichy started to pick up a whole lot of momentum, which they were able to carry into the end game, which they played brilliantly, stalling out the Hatterene's Trick Room with Substitute and Protect, going for a Wicked Blow on the last turn of Trick Room when they had a Substitute up, and then the following turn they went for a Wicked Blow again right after Trick Room ended to close out the game. So pretty good performance there by Ben and Vichy.
Yeah, expertly played by them. After that, we have a Doesn't Click versus the Skarmories. Doesn't Click, obviously our number one team going into this week. They proved hands down that they're one of the best teams in the league. Skarmories went for a Miltank mode that just did not work against the mode that the Doesn't Click decided to bring. They Doesn't Click brought an Obstagoon in the Cinderace mode. The Skarmories brought a Ryo, was it Lucario?
Yes.
Lucario and the Miltank. Just it was a really tough matchup for them. Just in general, the Miltank mode failed. After the Miltank activated the Defiant Boost on the Obstagoon, it was really just down for Team Pussy to just, or I'm sorry, not Team Pussy, Doesn't Click, to just put down the pressure with the Airstreams, make sure that the Obstagoon could stay at neutral or higher on the speed, and it really made it tough for the Skarmories to come back from that. Once the Obstagoon was at like +2 attack, it just really started rolling on him. Also, one of the things that we noticed was the Comfey, while it did have a Babiri Berry, they didn't calc for the Max Steel Spike coming from the Libero Cinderace. That really hurt them. If they were to calc to survive the big Max Steel Spike with the Babiri Berry instead of just throwing in max HP, max attack, we may have seen a little bit of a different result. Might not have been as dominant of a victory over the Skarmories, but
really gave Doesn't Click a lot of momentum.
Yeah, it really did. It almost just put the nail in the coffin for him. So overall, just a really dominant victory by Doesn't Click.
Next, we have the Russian Assets versus LA New Wave. The Assets taking the 3-0 win off of LA New Wave. This game, you could argue, was kind of over on after turn 1. The LA New Wave Dynamaxed their Colossal. The Assets Dynamaxed their Gastrodon. The Butterfree went down on the Asset side. It got hit with a Fake Out and a G-Max Vocalith. And then the Gastrodon was just free to demolish the Dynamax Colossal with a a Max Geyser. So they LA New Wave ended up losing their Dynamax Pokemon turn one. Took a really big hit. Afterward, with the Butterfree down, the assets were able to get a free switch into their Gothitelle, which completely prevented LA New Wave from being able to reposition using that Shadow Tag. Gothitelle set up Trick Room, while Gastrodon continued to launch max moves in the rain, no less. And after so Gastrodon was able to put down a lot of damage, while Gothitelle prevented them from switching and repositioning. Caparaja came out after the Gastrodon went down. Excellent Trick Room sweeper, did a lot of damage, and Caparaja went down right around the time Trick Room was ending. They had Cinderace in the back, and also Jolteon in the back on the other side, which did not end up hitting the field. But as they came out of Trick Room, they brought one of their fastest Pokemon out. Cinderace was able to outspeed everything on LA New Wave's side. They were able to go for a helping hand Expert Bell U-turn into the Claydol while it was trying to set up Trick Room, so that it had a leg up against the Cinderace and the Jolteon to the back. Got knocked out in one hit with that U-turn, and Cinderace and Gothitelle were able to close things out by scoring the KO on that Tauros at the end of the game.
Right after that, we had the seniors and the Patrats. Really close game. The Patrats and the seniors actually went to time. The Patrats ended up winning, I believe it was 3-2 on the differential. Really bad matchup for the seniors in general. The Patriots had a good enough composition to where it really forced the Porygon Z to sit on the bench, which might have hurt the seniors a lot. Just depending, it was one of their main modes of offense. The Trick Room mode on the Patrat side really hurt the seniors, even though the seniors prepped really well for it. They had the Spritzy with After You, but once the Bulldoze went into the Caparaja, activated the weakness policy, brought it down to -1 speed, there was really not a lot that you can do after bringing the Spritzy in. It's not going to be slower than the Caparaja. It just, in general, their Trick Room mode kind of overwhelmed them a little bit. And despite them playing well in Trick Room, there was just way too much damage done by the time they came out of Trick Room. One of the things that we noticed was, given the board position at the time, had there been no timer at all, the Patriots definitely win 100% of the time. Had the seniors realized maybe 2 minutes before, maybe at the 4-minute mark, that their win condition was time related, there's a possibility that they still had a 4-3 Pokemon advantage on the Patriots. There's a possibility that had they realized that their win condition was the timer, they might have been able to pull it out. But Patriots ended up winning. They took the victory regardless of them timing out and it going to time.
Next game, we have us, Amoonguss Burnouts, versus the Melee Mimikyus. This one was, we led with a couple of Pokemon anticipating either a Durant or a Cobalion lead. We wanted to be prepared for both of those big steel types trying to Dynamax and sweep. We saw the Blastoise and ended up switching into Duraludon to go for some max overgrowths on it to take it out. The Krokorok on the other side of the field was trying to snarl us down, and it did pretty significantly reduce our damage output. But at the same time, the Blastoise sitting next to it wasn't really able to put on enough pressure to make slowing us down worth it. So we ended up we Dynamaxed the Duraludon, even though we were at -1 special attack. We wanted to take out the Blastoise. After that, the Duraludon took out the Krokorok. They brought in their their Durant right as the Maractus KO'd Blastoise, and so we brought Noivern back onto the field. They Maractus KOing our Blastoise. We brought Noivern back onto the field. Right when Durant went for a Dynamax, and as soon as we hit the Dynamax Durant with that Life Orb Heat Wave and took it out in one shot, the game was more or less over from there. They didn't get a single max move off. They essentially played the game without a Dynamax and lost their Durant pretty much for free. After that, we had Slowking out on the field. We went for a Trick Room, switch into Pincurchin to close out the game with our Trick Room mode. And once they decided to attempt to fake out the Noivern, and it ended up hitting the Pincurchin on the switch in, instead of faking out the Slowking, we got our Trick Room up pretty much for free, and Pincurchin and Slowking were able to close out the game with a Trick Room sweep. We ended up winning that game 5-0.
Yeah, and one of the other things I kind of wanted to hit on too was the fact that we kind of had a lot of answers for the Durant in general. Since I was the one that was streaming, you can pretty clearly see that we ran Choice Scarf, Volcarona. So even if they protected or did anything like that tried to protect the Durant, the second that they Dynamaxed that Durant, they more or less signed their own death warrant, because we prepped so hard for the Durant that had they knocked out the Noivern, we have the Volcarona in the back, that Scarf that can obviously go and outspeed it and knock it out with the Heat Wave. Put the Life Orb on the Noivern too to make sure that we got that knockout onto it. And another thing too is the fact that they didn't bring Clefairy really helped us out a lot, because the Friend Guard calcs were making it very tough, especially for the Noivern. It really threw us in for a loop. So when we saw in team preview that they didn't even bring it, it really eased up a lot on us.
Yeah, we were really trying to prep a lot for all three of their big Dynamax Pokemon, Blastoise, Gmax Blastoise, and the Durant and the Cobalion.
Yeah.
We pretty much had a plan for any of those leads, especially the two Steel types. Having the double Heat Wave in front was pretty big for shutting down the Durant or beat up stuff with Sneasel and Cobalion, but we ended up sort of repositioning to cover for that Blastoise lead, and it worked out.
Yeah, really did. And we ended up with the 5-0 victory. So after that, we have the Talonflames versus the Potatoes, another very good match. Turned out that the Potatoes actually ended up losing that one. The Talonflames come away with the victory 3-0. One of the things that we saw right away was the use of the Liepard, putting down the Charm right away on the Excadrill. Really neutered the Potatoes' damage output with their Dynamax. Made sure that they got no benefits coming out of it. You get the defense boost, fine, with the Max Steel Spike. You get the special defense boost, fine, go ahead. But when you're at -4 attack, you're really put in a very, very, very tough spot. And then on top of that, they positioned themselves perfectly, brought in the Trick Room mode, had a Scavalier, Dynamaxed a Scavalier, and it had so much good coverage for the rest of their team. They put out a lot of damage. And with that amount of damage, they may have had some Pokemon in the back. The Potatoes might have had some Pokemon in the back that might have been able to do a decent amount. Obviously, we saw the Excadrill get knocked out eventually, but that Dragapult ended up coming in after the Trick Room ended and really started putting pressure down with the Phantom Force. They played expertly against a very, very, very good team in the Potatoes. Got to give the Talonflames a lot of credit for coming away with a 3-0 victory there.
And our last match of the week was between the Sky Pillars and the Lava Ridge Raiders. This was the only match we did not get a recording of, but we spoke with Shannon a little bit to try to get some insight into how the match went, what exactly happened. Essentially what went down was there was a Venusaur Torkoal lead from the Raiders and a Chandelure Rillaboom lead from the Sky Pillars. The Venusaur switched out as Rillaboom attempted to fake it out, switched out into the Slowbro. And the Torkoal went for an eruption, took out the Rillaboom, but it gave Chandelure the Flash Fire boost And from that point on, the Sky Pillars brought out their Riolu to redirect attacks away from Chandelure, and the Chandelure had imprisoned Trick Room to really shut down the Lava Ridge Raiders' Trick Room mode, which they're pretty reliant on. And as soon as the Trick Room mode was shut down, as soon as the Chandelure was they knew the Chandelure was going to keep them from doing that, the Riolu continued to follow me to redirect attacks away from the Chandelure, and the Chandelure was able to pick up a few KOs with the sun boosted, flash fire boosted heat waves. Once eventually Chandelure goes down, one side pretty much got beaten down. While the Chandelure was pretty much doing whatever it wanted, the Raiders were sort of scrambling, switching around, trying to reposition, but it just wasn't doing any good. The Trick Room could not go up, and the Chandelure just had too much power behind it. Eventually, the Chandelure went down. Golurk took out the Dynamax Dragalge, which seemed like they sort of Dynamaxed that thing out of desperation a little bit, and a late game Dynamax Togekiss on the Sky Pillar side was able to clean up everything else and score three KOs to secure the 3-0 victory for the Sky Pillars.
So that wraps up week 1. Next, we're going to go into a segment that we're going to be introducing for the first time here. We call it We're Geniuses or We're Idiots. So, as everybody knows, we made some predictions on our first week in week 0 on some of these teams, and we're going to go over where we were right and where we were wrong on them in We're Geniuses or We're Idiots. So, starting off, we're going to go with Matt with We're Geniuses.
So, one of the predictions that we made, which we feel turned out to be true, was that there were a few teams with several powerful Dynamax options, where the Pokemon that want to Dynamax might not be too powerful if they don't get the opportunity to Dynamax. We saw this from a few different teams. That was one of our major criticisms of our opponents this past week, the Melee Mimikyus, especially when you look at the Durant and Cobalion. Both of them really want to Dynamax, and because of that, they decided to bring Durant, and they actually did not bring the Cobalion Sneasel mode at all, because they decided they wanted to max Durant, and I imagine the Cobalion just didn't seem like as good of an option if they weren't going to max it. You could see that with LA New Wave as well. The same kind of thing happened there. The Colossal ended up maxing. Their Mew is likely going to be a Dynamax candidate in a lot of games. It sort of fell flat. It just had some coverage moves and wasn't really able to do much with them. I don't think the Mew scored a KO at all, and it got a couple attacks off, but it just went down. The Dracozolt, they determined they determined that if they were not going to max it, it was not bringing it all, because they had it in team preview, but it did not hit the field. They left it on the bench. And the same can be said for the SoCal Skarmories. The Miltank was their Dynamax Pokemon of choice this week. The Lapras, again, same thing as the Cobalion and the Dracozolt. That was not their Dynamax Pokemon. They figured if they weren't going to Dynamax it, maybe it's not worth bringing. So we did see it in team preview, but it stayed on the bench. And Goodra is a Pokemon that really likes to Dynamax as well, but Goodra, again, like most of the Pokemon on their team this week, unfortunately didn't really do anything. So we saw a lot of Pokemon that want to Dynamax, didn't, and some of those teams suffered for it.
Yeah, when you're leaving your A tiers and your S tiers on the bench, and you're bringing both of your D tiers, you may have a little bit of an issue when you go into the actual match. So we saw that a little bit this week. And we're going to move on to We Are Idiots, which Matt will go on to.
One of the predictions that we got totally wrong has to do with the Toronto Talonflames. we kind of harped on them for not having redirection, and even the supportive picks that they do have, they didn't really seem that great for their team. They proved us wrong this week in their battle with the Potatoes. It didn't really matter that they didn't really have any redirection. The lie part in the early game turned out to be incredibly effective, going for a taunt on that Togetic turn 1, and then 2 charms on that Dynamax Excadrill the following 2 turns really shut down their ability to get as much mileage as you want out of that Dynamax. They didn't really care that they couldn't redirect the max moves from Excadrill because they just weren't doing any damage. -2 Steel Spike followed by a -4 Steel Spike, and then Dynamax is over. Really effective way to mitigate the damage output from their opponents there. The Liepard in the early game was really able to control the game, and then going into the mid game, the Musharna didn't even really have any crazy special tech moves. You see Trick Room Helping Hand on it all the time, but it's a tried and true set for a reason. It was able to set up Trick Room, help support that Escavalier. We really feel like those Liepard and Musharna as their support Pokemon were really able to shine and allowed them to control the game until the end game, where they kind of cleaned up with the Sylveon and the Dragapult. So really good showing by their support options when we we didn't think they were all that great in our initial analysis of their draft. So we were idiots when it came to that.
A great game by them overall.
Yes.
But with that being said, there were some parts where we were still geniuses. One of those parts where we mentioned in the very beginning that the Patch Rats really lacked a lot of firepower to close out some games. We saw that with the Sadistic Seniors. The Seniors really didn't have a good matchup coming into this when your main sweeper, Porygon Z, gets outsped by Arcanine and can just get those Snarls launched into it. Really puts you in a bad position. Really pigeonholed them into a slot where they couldn't bring the Porygon Z at all. We saw that even though they didn't have their top offensive mode and that the Patrats forced them into playing in this very defensive style, the Patrats got their Copperaja with the weakness policy off and the -1 speed with the Bulldoze. They were able to come in with their fast mode afterwards. They pretty much did whatever they wanted, but it still went to time. And that was one of the things that we mentioned. They absolutely have a very high average attack stat. They absolutely have a very high special attack stat in their average of their team. But the synergy as far as, like, for instance, Colossal. Colossal doesn't have a great speed stat. Colossal doesn't have a great attack stat. But when you activate that Steam Engine, when you activate that weakness policy, it becomes a threat. So we don't really see that a lot with the Patch Rats. And even when they were able to execute their plan perfectly, we saw this week definitely that they weren't able to close out the Seniors in something where the Seniors really were going to have a hard time winning anyway. So I think that's one of the instances where we were right on that. The Patriots got the victory, but it may be a little bit tougher for them to come out and be that 8-1 that they were last year. So we'll definitely see on that. But on the flip side of that coin, we were idiots when we said that about Doesn't Click. We were saying that about Doesn't Click. We said the same thing. There's no way that their versatility is going to be able to put out 5-0, 6-0 wins. And they came out against a defensive team in the SoCal Skarmories and really put it to them. Now, granted, we will 100% say that it may have had something to do with the fact that we think that the Miltank mode might not have been the greatest mode.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like the Skarmories did that to themselves.
Yeah. When you're launching Stab Max Strikes, when Defiant Obstagoon is on the field, and then you have Cinderace that can launch those max Airstreams to offset those max strikes, so that way it can sit at +1 speed with +4 attack, because you keep launching those max strikes hoping to lower its speed. It makes it so that way you do have that offense that maybe we didn't say that you initially had. So We were definitely dumb on that respect. They came away with the 5-0 win. We do think that the SoCal Skarmories, while they may have been ranked low in our Week 0 power rankings, Steve and Gooch, good players. They can absolutely hold their own. They made it into playoffs last year. They have a good squad this year. But for Doesn't Click to just come in and put down their dominating fashion win, we were saying that Doesn't Click is going to be scary. Now they're really looking that way. But back to it, Matt. Let us know where we were geniuses.
We were geniuses when it came to the Lava Ridge Raiders. I mean, maybe we weren't geniuses because it was pretty easy to see how over reliant they were on Trick Room. And this first week one match really showed that. I described when we were going over the matches, the Sky Pillars just used the Imprisoned Trick Room on Chandelure, which is a great tech to shut down Trick Room, and it did exactly that. Once they shut down Trick Room with the Imprison, they were kind of scrambling, switching around a bit to try to reposition, and the Chandelure was able to pick up 2 KOs during that time, and at that point the Raiders were a little too crippled to do anything. That would have been very different if they had gotten Trick Room up, but the Sky Pillars were able to identify that they were a very heavy Trick Room team, and if they were forced to battle outside of Trick Room, it was probably not going to end well for them, and that was exactly right. So that one tech move, that Imprisoned Trick Room, shut down their entire strategy. So we were definitely right about that.
Yeah. And where we were idiots, the Mats, not this Matt, Ben and Vichy were able to show us completely how we really got on these teams that were very top heavy. The Mats proved, cool, we're top heavy. I think Matt's line that made me laugh so hard was, you can't even say top heavy without seeing the Vespa Queen on there at the 6th pick. They're that top heavy. They showed, who cares? Who cares? We're good players. We have good strategies. We know what we're doing, and we'll take on the defending champs. We have stuff for the defending champs. They played very, very well. They're very clearly, good team builders in their own right. One of the things that I'll just kind of touch on real quick was the Urshifu play, being able to sub out and stall out the Trick Room. Something that seems very obvious when it's in play, but it requires very high-level thinking and high-level play when you're in that moment, when you're trying to figure out, you're still staring down the Cleffa, you're still staring down the Hattering, you need to make that call. Very, very high-level play from them. They came out, they said, cool, yeah, we're top-heavy. They told us in our interview with them, Pupitar's not going to make an appearance. Scorbunny probably not going to make an appearance. But the Pokemon that we have, you better watch out for. So we marked them down pretty hard because of how top-heavy they were. And they were 100% correct. They do not need a deep draft to make a big statement in this league.
Didn't even bring any bluffs.
Nope. They didn't even bring any bluffs.
One of them had 3 Mons on their side. The other one had a level 1 Scorbunny. So obviously that wasn't coming. They didn't have bluffs. They brought 6 Pokemon instead of 8, and they still did what they did.
Yeah. So we were definitely idiots when it came to them. They definitely proved us wrong. Ben and Vichy, we love you guys. Thank you for proving us wrong. We appreciate that. So now we go into, after all that, the power rankings. So we will move us over here for now. And we're going to go through.
One other reason that we're idiots is that we did not plan this out with thinking about the face cam. So that's why we're having to move it around during the video. So.
Yes. Yes. We weren't very smart on that. So we're going to go through the power rankings, 14 through 6. Same thing as last week. We'll go through the top 5 right after that.
So we're starting off with the Lava Ridge Raiders at the bottom. They were ranked number 14 last time on our Week 0 power rankings. They lost their first game in a fashion that we kind of predicted. Very hard on the trick room mode with this draft, and this is kind of what happens when uh, your team's strategy is very clear, and your opponent just brings a very hard counter to it. Once the imprison went off, they were scrambling. They were sustaining more and more KOs, and eventually just led to that Dynamax Togekiss from the Sky Pillars, just cleaning them up at the end. So, the they were completely denied from doing what they want to do, and they lost for it. So they are staying at rank number 14.
At 13, we have the Mimikyus. Really not much to say on them. We prepped hard for the draft because that was what showed that they had the best matchup for. With two redirectors, they really didn't have any reason to go for the Sneasel or the Cobalion. You know, it really showed that when you prep hard for one of the three damage dealers that they're going to bring out, we prepped for two of them. One of them didn't show up at all. We'd like to give them some credit for having the Croc Rock and kind of, slowing down our offense a little bit. But at the end of the day, they weren't really able to slow down our offense enough to stop what was initially going to come.
The SoCal Skarmories dropped down from 11 to 12. They took a pretty devastating loss this week at the hands of Doesn't Click. Most of us in the pick'ems, actually everybody I think, voted for Doesn't Click to win. So it's not surprising that they lost the game, but the way they lost was rather devastating. It was a 5-0 win for Doesn't Click. That Crocodile at the end of the game barely managed to eke out a KO with that Rock Slide on Obstagoon. I wonder if they actually could have prevented that and gone for a 6-0 if they just switched the Obstagoon out there. But in any case, their Dynamax Miltank strategy failed. It was they even I believe Steve even said in the video something about how they should have prepped better for Cinderace, and he was exactly right. The Cinderace caused them far too many problems. I don't see how the Vacuum Wave Follow Me Lucario and the Dynamax Weakness Policy Miltank was going to succeed against most Cinderace leads, and then once the Babiri Berry Comfey went down, it really pushed a lot of momentum in Doesn't Click's favor. The SoCal Skarmories team just really fell apart. They lost their Unpheasant the turn after, and then they had only one side left, which was promptly demolished thereafter. So we had high hopes for this team. We like their draft. We know that Steve and Gooch are good players, but this week was a pretty devastating loss for them.
At number 11, we have the Sadistic Seniors. This one was also a really tough one for us because we felt that, there's possibly a chance that if they had noticed the timer a little bit earlier, maybe at the 4-minute, 5-minute mark, they might have been able to push away with a victory. They obviously are very good players. They obviously have a very good team composition. They had a very tough matchup. When you're forced to leave your main damage dealer on the bench, it's going to be very tough. When your other main damage dealer is Marowak and it's not slower than some of the other things that they have in Trick Room, it's going to be very tough. So ultimately, we dropped the Sadistic Seniors down 2 spots. They're probably not going to be there for very long. They're going to be a playoff team most likely. We watched your videos, guys. We do not underestimate you. Nobody in this league underestimates you guys. We know that you guys have the heat. You guys have the team. This week was a bad week for you guys, but we're sure that you guys are going to be able to crawl back out of this. But for right now, we have them at number 11.
And at number 10, kind of tore us apart to put the Potatoes down this low, considering they were number 3 in our week 0 power rankings. We really debated whether we wanted to put them at 9 or 10. Their placement at 10 instead of 9 has more to do with the Sky Pillars' performance than with theirs. but they lost against they lost in a match that I believe most of the league voted for them to win against the Talonflames. Um, but the Talonflames were ranked number 10. They were ranked number 3. It was pretty bad loss for them to take from the number 10 ranked team, especially considering that the Potatoes did not have control of that game at all. The Talonflames took control, kept control the whole match, and they won because of it. Um, the sand mode just fell flat once the Dynamax Excadrill started taking those charms. The superior Trick Room mode on the side of the Talonflames just tore through them. The curse on Gigalith as Trick Room went up was a good play, and it was good prep on their part. But on the other hand, we also kind of have to knock them for not having the right speed IV on the Gigalith. If it had been a 0 speed IV, and we all know mistakes can be made like that, that wasn't intentional. But if that mistake was avoided, at least the Gigalith would have undersped the Escavalier. I'm not sure if it really would have mattered considering the amount of damage output we were seeing from the Rock Slide against the Dynamax Escavalier. But even the Slowbro was actually its quick draw popped off, and it was actually able to hit the Escavalier with a flamethrower. I believe that was the first turn of Trick Room. And we saw the Escavalier was going for that Slowbro with a Max Quake and took it out. They got lucky with that quick draw, and even that wasn't enough to get them back in the game. So they didn't have control at all. They were at the mercy of that light part. They were at the mercy of the Trick Room mode, and then the Sylveon and the Dragapult were able to clean up afterward. There was kind of looked like there wasn't a whole lot they could do. So it's devastating that we have to drop them so many ranks, but because of the way that they were they didn't have control of that game, and because of how well a lot of other teams did, unfortunately this is where they are right now. But to be honest, we do expect them to rise back up.
After that, number 9, we have the Sky Pillars. They moved up 3 spots after their victory over the Lava Ridge Raiders. We mentioned it before. We thought that they have a great Firewater Grass core with Togekiss. They proved that they have enough to deal with some of these more basic modes. They handily won. We have to give them credit for that. Period. When you're Dynamaxing your Pokemon, when they only have one side left, I think you can count that as a pretty good victory there. Obviously the Rillaboom got knocked out right away, but when the Chandelure can just clean up in Sun with a Flash Fire boost off a super high special attack stat, it puts down so much pressure. I mean, we really have to give these guys a lot of credit, and we actually feel really good doing so. We really like the Sky Pillars. So congrats to Shannon, congrats to Furret. You guys played really well, and good luck for the rest of it. But good for right now. Sky Pillars are going to be at number 9.
Next up at number 8, we've got LA New Wave dropping down, barely making our top 5 last time. They dropped down to number 8 after taking a loss from the Russian Assets, which was a pretty commanding performance by the Russians, and they're just again it's another case of a lower ranked team taking control of a game against a higher ranked team. LA New Wave was just once that Colossal got blown up turn 1, there just wasn't really anything they could do. All the Russians had to do was maintain that lead, and they did, and they just did. LA New Wave just didn't have an opening. They weren't able to break through what they were doing, especially with that Trick Room mode, and they were beat pretty handily, so we had to drop them down a few ranks for that.
Let's move us over here, and we will talk about...
Right.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about Team Pussy. Team Pussy, we moved down 3 spots to number 7. It was tough for us to do this. Obviously, they took a tough loss this week. But we're kind of seeing some of the stuff that we were talking about initially with the Togekiss not being there. They obviously tried to do the same thing with Gyarados with the max airstream stuff. Although they did not launch any max airstreams, they feel that they can have a fast mode with the Gyarados. Another thing that we saw was their Trick Room mode obviously isn't as threatening with just the Cleffa and just the Hatterene. It really is missing that other Trick Room sweeper like the Caparaja. The fact of the matter is, though, Team Pussy, great players. They have a good team composition. Even though they are at number 7, it's they had a rough week this week, but hopefully they'll be able to come back and bounce back. Regardless of getting the burn on the Gyarados first turn, they still did really well. We're hoping that we'll see more consistency out of them. But for right now, we have them at number 7. They dropped 3 spots.
And coming in at number 6, the Toronto Talonflames bumped up four ranks from number 10 in our Week 0 power rankings. I won't really go too much into this because we've kind of been over it a couple times, but they really just took control of that game with the potatoes. The Liepard took control of the early game. Trick Room mode took control of the mid game, and that allowed them to pretty easily clean up at the end. And they beat a team that was ranked far above them. So, and we like we said, we sort of underestimated their supportive options, and they turned out to be pretty fantastic. So props to Asian Tofu and Gumi. You guys had a great week. You've shown that perhaps we underestimated you, and you've definitely proven that you're a force to be reckoned with. So we bumped you up to number 6.
So we're gonna go into the top 5. At number 5, we have the New England Patriots. We really like the Patriots' victory this week. We thought they did very, very well against the Sadistic Seniors. Obviously, they did end up going to time, but the Seniors are a good team. Their synergy is off the charts. We really can't deny that. Even though they weren't able to close them out exactly the way that they may have wanted to, they had a 100% win condition. Had that not gone to time, they really had control of that game from turn 1. And had the Seniors on their back foot a lot of the time. Yes, that most likely had to do with the fact that you have the Inteleon, you have the Arcanine there that are just threatening the Porygon Z so much. But really, they showed how 2 players can absolutely take the victory against 2 other equally or just as good players. And you have the matchup, play it to your out, get the victory, walk away. Sure, you didn't finish it the way that you wanted to. You got that victory, though. The Sadistic Seniors are a good team. We're not counting them out at all. So with that, we move them to the number 5 spot.
Number 4, we've got Ben and Vichy of the Matt Alcinas. These guys, again, their win this week was a bit of an upset, which still feels weird to call it an upset in week 1, but they did take control of that game and took a win off of the reigning champions, who they lost pretty decisively to in finals last season. So once they did get a little bit lucky on turn 1, but once they also correctly identified that there wasn't really anything better for Politoed to do other than fish for that burn on Gyarados, and that call paid off. That plus the Intimidate really allowed them to stop Team Pussy's Dynamax from doing much. They stalled it out. They set up a really strong offensive mode with the Politoed and the Inteleon, especially with that Helping Hand Surf play, and the Inteleon Gigantamaxed after that, and put down a huge amount of offense. And they starting with that Surf play followed by the Dynamax, that was really when they started to take control of that game. And then just the beautiful substitute tech on Urshifu is we have to go back to that again. It was a really beautiful tech that allowed them to close out that game perfectly. As long as they just alternated between protect and sub, and then went for a wicked blow on the last turn of Trick Room while their sub got destroyed, and then they came out of Trick Room, went for one more wicked blow for the win. They played that expertly. The sub was a great tech, and beating the returning champions is no easy feat considering they lost to them last time around. So really good performance by Ben and Vichy here. So they not only made our top 5, but they are up at number 4.
Also, to kind of add, yes, they got the burn on the Gyarados, but they also said if that Gyarados is a pure water type, they're going for Fissure into it. So, if they were going to get one of those, the burn was probably the lesser of the two evils. They were going to go for one. If it wasn't flying type, they were definitely going to go for that Fissure. So, they went for the Scald, they got the burn.
They missed. They went for Fissure twice and they missed both of them. Why are they so unlucky?
I don't know why they're so unlucky. Apparently. So, with that, we'll go into number 3. Our number 3 team was the Russian Assets. We definitely saw that they proved to jump themselves in the top 5. They had a very, very decisive victory over the LA New Wave. They prepped very well. They understood that the Colossal Mold was going to be one of the main things that was going to hinder them. They showed... I mean, when you look at this team, you go, we have to watch out for the Cinderace. We have to watch out for the Cinderace. We have to watch out for the Cinderace. They prepped so hard, and you can tell the New Wave were like, no, we got to watch out for that Cinderace. When you lead Gastrodon, when you lead Butterfree, something that's as unconventional as that, it really puts them on the back foot. It pigeonholed them into a spot where they're like, are we going to Dynamax right now? They did. They chose to take out the Butterfree, and they lost the Dragapult turn 1. From there, or I'm sorry, the Colossal. They lost the Colossal turn 1. From there, the Gothitelle came in, set up Trick Room, the Copperajah came in, and it just was a solid plan front to back. It was almost planned. You couldn't plan this out any better. The Gothitelle came in, set up Trick Room, the Gastrodon put down a couple turns, died, or fainted, the Copperajah came in, you have Life Orb, Sheer Force stuff coming out, the Trick Room ends, the Cinderace comes in, has the Jolteon in the back, and just puts down pure offensive pressure the whole time.
They didn't even need Jolteon.
They didn't even need the Jolteon, but if it was there, I think we took a look at the sets. They did have the Shadow Ball on the Jolteon. It was definitely enough. They did not need the Helping Hand to knock out the Clay Doll. So it seemed like just a very decisive victory from the Russian Assets. We moved up to number 3 because of the fact that, look, let's face it, when you're going up against a team that's ranked a little bit higher than you and you have such a decisive victory against them and you're also ranked very high yourself, you're going to find yourself into one of these top spots here.
And next up is us. We were ranked number 2 last time, and we took a 5-0 victory. It was most of the league knew how this game was going to go, more or less, or at least what the result was going to be. The Melee Mimikyus were ranked 13th in week 0. We were ranked 2, and we not only won, but we took a pretty decisive victory against them. We already kind of explained our own thoughts and our strategy with in this game in the beginning of the video, so won't go too much in depth here, but we were at number 2 already, took a really decisive victory, so we felt it was definitely enough to keep us where we were, for sure. Just couldn't move us any higher because there was another decisive victory that was just as decisive, another 5-0 victory by the team that was already ranked above us last time. So
yep, and that is Doesn't Click. We ranked them number 1 before. They gave us no reason to rank them down again. They proved us wrong by us saying that they didn't have any firepower and that they didn't have this and they didn't have that. And they came out week 1, went after the more defensive teams in the league and just wiped the floor with them. So, I mean, you keep Doesn't Click at number 1 until they prove otherwise, honestly. Mm-hmm. They have the core, they have the players, they have the knowledge and the experience in this league, they understand how to prep. they're really priming themselves to have another championship run. They're really priming themselves to make playoffs, to go into playoffs, and to really bring it to this league. Let's just say, on this end of the table, we are glad we are in Shield Division. But they had a great match against the Skarmories. We went into a little bit right there. They just didn't prep well for the Cinderace. They were activating Defiant Boost on the Obstagoon. It wasn't really necessary for us to see anything else, honestly. I mean, yeah, they made a couple of switches in and out just to kind of move stuff around, but the Cinderace and the Obstagoon took care of stuff so well. We really didn't need to see anything else. We really don't need to see anything else. The only thing that matters is they got a 5-0 victory, and they proved that they are still the best team in the league. So
For now.
For now. So we're gonna see as that progresses on. They are definitely other teams are gonna have to prove that they're not as good as they actually are. So if you're watching this, you're in the league, and your plane doesn't click, prove that they don't belong number one. Go ahead. We'll see it.
We'll be looking to take that number 1 spot off.
We'll be looking. We're trying. We're gonna definitely try.
We won't get to do it by beating them, but not in the regular season anyway. But we're looking for that number 1 spot. Of course we are.
Definitely. So just to go over really quick, we'll just go over 14 through 1. We have the Lava Ridge Raiders at 14. They didn't move. The Mimikyus at 13. They didn't move. The Skarmories moved down 1 spot. The Seniors moved down 2 spots. The Potatoes moved down all the way from number 3 to number 10. Moved down 7 spots. The Sky Pillars, with their victory, moved up 3 spots. New Wave moved down 3 spots with their loss to the assets, the Russian assets. Team Pussy, with their loss to the Mats, moved down 3 spots to number 7. The Toronto Talonflames, with their great victory against the Potatoes, moved up 4 spots to number 6. And in our top 5, we have the New England Patriots, who proved that they should be there at moving up 2 spots. The Mats also proving that their last year wasn't a fluke by getting into the finals. They proved that they can hang with the big boys. They're coming in at number 4. They moved up 4 spots. The Russian assets proved that they can hang with any of the bigger boys too. They have Pokemon that are just going to absolutely destroy you if you don't prep well for it. So they moved up 3 spots to the number 3 slot. And then us, the Amoonguss Burnouts, just stayed the same. We had a great victory against the Melee Mimikyus, but Doesn't Click just showed that they are going to be the number 1 slot for right now. They got that 5-0 victory against the Skarmories. Steve and Gooch are very good players. That is not a victory that, yes, it looks on paper, 5-0, easy money. The Skarmories are a good team. They're going to have good wins. This was impressive. To beat them that bad, that is an impressive win. So, with that being said, we go through the Week 1 power rankings. That's done. We go into Week 2. And we're going to have our pick'ems for Week 2. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead and take the Sword Division. I'll take the Shield Division.
Sure, yeah. So, Team Pussy versus the Sky Pillars. We're definitely voting Team Pussy here. We love the Sky Pillars.
Mm-hmm.
They had a great match this past week. But they also played the lowest ranked team and went in with a strategy that was virtually guaranteed to get them the win, which props to them for that. Great prep. But Team Pussy, I mean, they're the returning champions. They didn't get demolished by Ben and Vichy. They still put up a good fight. And we know they're amazing players. They still have a powerful draft. We're definitely we're picking them for this first match in the Sword Division. Let's see, Melee Mimikyus versus the Toronto Talonflames. It's pretty clear that the Talonflames are the favorite here. They had a great first week. They really proved that they can take control of the match even without redirection. Their team's got a couple of great modes. They're very, very capable. They have a good draft. They're good players. We think that Asian Tofu and Gumi are going to come out on top here. Again, this because the Melee Mimikyus, we've gone over their draft a bit. There's some problems with it. We played them this past week. They didn't have too great of a performance. So we think it's pretty clear that the the Talon Flames are going to come out on top here. And finally, the last match in the Sword Division, the Sadistic Seniors versus the Russian Assets. This one was a bit of a tougher call. We felt like we were able to pick Team Pussy and the Talon Flames pretty easily, but this one could really go either way. But we're going in with the Russian Assets. It's really hard to say exactly which way this is going to go. They're two of the biggest Series 5 Dynamax sweepers going up against each other. We got Porygon Z versus Gmax Cinderace. It's not clear who's going to come out on top here, whether the Sadistic Seniors are going to bring the full force of their top 4 picks. I think if they do that and they play them correctly, they can definitely come out with a win here. They can blow stuff up with Porygon Z, maybe set up that Corviknight as a win condition, maybe even get some Psy Spam stuff off. Who knows? But the Russian Assets, their fast mode is a little bit faster and their slow mode is a little bit slower, so they kind of have the speed advantage here. They could end up blowing up the Seniors with that Cinderace. They could end up beating them under Trick Room. If they have the speed advantage, that's going to be really good for them. So we think we're leaning a little bit more in the direction of the Russians, but this one's going to be a really great match. It really could go either way.
Seniors don't want to lose twice in a row. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that they can pull out one of these victories. I mean, start 1-1 in the first 2 weeks. So they don't want to lose twice in a row. Moving on to the Shield Division, we have the Matt Alcinas versus the New Wave. This was a very tough one for us. We think both teams are very good, but ultimately we think that the Mats are probably going to come out on top here, mainly based off of matchups. The Mats just in general have a very, very top-heavy mode that seems on paper like it can beat through some of the Dracozolt stuff, some of the Mew stuff that the New Wave have.
Also has a little bit to do with the performances of Week 1.
Yes, it definitely does. It's going to be tough. I hate to judge the New Wave so harshly off of their Week 1 performance. Both Hector and Alan are coming off of a year where they did not play, so they didn't play last season. They're jumping back in this season. They got to go against Taryn and Dina last week, who they very clearly had their mode. They know how to build. They're, jumping right into it, and it really showed that they had their prep ready. They're good with the multi-battle format. So look for the New Wave to bounce back. But ultimately, me and Matt decided that Ben and Vichy were probably going to end up taking this one with the against LA New Wave. The New England Patriots versus the Lava Ridge Raiders. I mean, honestly, we hate to say this. We kind of don't like to go too hard on any team. But the Raiders are really outmatched on this one. The Patriots have so much versatility in all of their picks. 1 through 10, it just seems like they have talent all around. I'd be really, really, really surprised if the Lava Ridge Raiders can keep this close. Despite everything that we've kind of said about, the Patriots not having that offensive mode that, we really want to see. The Lava Ridge Raiders have such a top-heavy draft, and their Trick Room mode, kind of like how you alluded to with the assets and with the seniors, with the Russians and the seniors. The Patriots have a better Trick Room mode. The Patriots have a better fast mode. It's really not that hard to understand. The Raiders, we think that they definitely have some stuff that can pull out some victories here. They're really going to have to work to beat the Patriots, so we're going to give it to the Patriots here. We think the Patriots are going to run away with it. Then after that, it's us, the Amoonguss Burnouts versus the Potatoes. This was going to be a lot closer, having seen what the Potatoes, how they performed against the Talon Flames. It's rough, honestly. I'm also not going to lie. When we thought about this, the fact of the matter is Henry is not, we don't know if Henry's going to be coming back yet, and Alyssa and Haley both have they have the women's tournament that's coming up this week. Their focus is most likely going to be on the women's tournament. Now with us saying that, who knows how their focus is going to shift. But I wouldn't doubt it if they're just like, you know what, we're really putting our time and effort into just making sure that this women's tournament goes well and everything goes and that we play well in it. The fact that they didn't play very well last week, we kind of have a good matchup against them. One of the things that we talked about was bulky water types. We have Blastoise. It's one of those things where on paper we have the matchup. We beat them twice before. Granted, those were old rosters, so while we definitely don't think that the Potatoes are a bad team at all, we think just with the circumstances of everything that's coming together, it's going to be very tough for the Potatoes to pull out this victory. And obviously it sounds like we're biased coming out of this.
Of course, because of course we are.
Because of course we are. I mean, let's just face it. But I do really think that as much as Alyssa and Haley both want to beat us, I know Haley wants to beat us because we got her and Edu last year twice. But as much as they want to beat us, they have better priorities than focusing on this week. So we think we're probably going to come away with those. Doesn't Click and the Skarmories are on a bye this week. So unless the Skarmories break their switches, they're going to stay at the number 1 slot. So hopefully they don't drop their switch and erase all their data, because that's pretty much the only thing that's going to keep them out of that number 1 slot this week. Let me see. I think that's it. Anything else that you wanted to cover real quick? Let's go back to that.
No, I think that's all we got.
All right. So, with that being said, this ran a little bit longer than we wanted to, but we covered everything that we felt that we needed to. Great job. Great week 1, everybody. We had a lot of exciting matches this week.
Yeah, great matches.
Yeah, so we can't wait for week 2.
Good luck to all teams going into the second week.
Yeah, and if we rooted against you, work extra hard.
Don't forget transactions after week 2.
Yes, it's gonna be very big. We're gonna take a look at those transactions too after week 2 and see how everybody did. But for now, I'm Anthony. That's Matt. We're the Amoonguss Burnouts, and we'll see you around.